Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your newest source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I am joined, as always, by my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
I could be doing better if it'd been a better Packers game, but
Could be doing
the
better
rest of the day
if-
went okay. I was at a birthday party,
Okay.
a 1-year-old birthday party.
Yeah, that's fine. That's better than my day, at least. But like my dad said, unfortunately, we are here to recap the Packers' loss to the Vikings. The Packers, unfortunately, fell to the Vikings by a score of 23-7 in Minnesota this afternoon. We are recording to you here live Sunday night as we break down the rest of that game and our thoughts, how we felt people played, what we think can get changed going forward. But first, we just wanted to really quick pitch this podcast's Twitter. We're trying to up our interactions there, so if you guys could go check out our Twitter account at FatherSonPacker, or if you want to check out our YouTube account, Father-Son Packers Podcast on YouTube. If either of those places you want to give us a follow, a subscribe, that'd be really great. It would really help us with the algorithm. A retweet, you know. Come check out all of our medias, and that would really help us get a little bit bigger because we really love doing this, and we would love more people to come listen to us if they want to. But yeah, so Dad, I guess let's get into it. We are going to be bringing you guys these post-game podcasts every single Sunday night or Monday night if the game is a Monday night going forward. And what we're always going to start with is a bit of what we're going to call a segment gut check time, which is kind of more of a holistic, like how we felt about the game. Dad, how did your gut feel about the game?
Can I say I feel like I got punched in the gut?
Yeah, that's a reasonable gut check reaction. You got gut checked.
But actually, I would feel that this one, there's a lot of talk about how this is like last year or the other times, but I didn't actually feel like this was the same thing. Last year's first game against the Saints, and then the other games like against the Tampa Bay 2 years ago and the Niners 3 years ago, where those regular season games where they just got kind of boat raced and never put up any kind of fight and just got demolished and couldn't do anything. This was a game where you felt like they were like just on the edge of starting to compete. I mean, they had several possessions in where they could have tied it up or cut it to one score, and then they would kind of screw it up.
They just weren't quite the level of sharpness needed to win the game. They were not sharp enough to win the game.
I don't feel like it was
deserve to win the game, but
no, they didn't deserve to win the game. But it wasn't like the disaster kind of start. So I feel like it wasn't as bad as those games.
That's what I've been saying. It was not nearly as bad as last year. Last year, it felt like they were never in that game. This game, it felt like there were one or two moments. Specifically, we'll talk later. But the Christian Watson drop, the 4th and 1 stop at the goal line. Those two specifically kind of really swung the game in the Vikings' direction. But I will say there were some parallels to those games that you mentioned in that the Packers got punched in the mouth early and kind of were still just another flat game under Matt LaFleur where they just come out and just are really off kilter early.
But I would say that those ones, they got punched in the mouth and then it was just like over. Here, I mean, I don't feel like they really turtled. They just couldn't quite make the play. They were still.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
They were still on the edge. They did. They had these. They fell behind. They did let the Vikings, I think, mostly dictate the pace of the game and the play of the game, but they hung around for a while.
Yeah.
What?
I was gonna say it's easier for the Vikings to dictate the game when they have the ball the whole game. Like I would say that the Packers just kind of set themselves up. They weren't sharp enough, like you said, to get those little small moments, to win those small moments that swing a game. They were more in it than the other games, I will say, but I don't know. It definitely felt like to me that they froze a little bit. They didn't turtle completely, like you said. They did try to fight back a little bit. They got back in the game. They scored a touchdown in the second half, but yeah, I don't know. It still felt a little bit like they were turtling a bit.
They didn't. Yeah, it was. It's kind of like this low energy game. It
wasn't the lowest energy I've seen them, but it was another low energy game to me.
Yeah.
Which I guess, I mean, it was not as bad as 38-3 last year to the Saints. It was nowhere near that bad. They
No, it wasn't close.
they could have in the third quarter, end of the third. I thought they still had a chance to win, which I did not think last year. So it's easily better than last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like that's my main gut check reaction to this was, it's not as bad as last year objectively, but it just feels so much worse when it happens in division.
Yeah.
Like it's more impactful when it happens in division. Like, so while the quality of the loss is not as bad, it hurts more because it's to the Vikings, which is just annoying to me.
Is this your gut check? One thing I was looking at this, like, this isn't that far off from your prediction.
I did pick the Vikings to win this game. Was it 24-10?
24-10.
Yeah, and
so
they beat us 23-7.
23-7. So
I can't say I predicted it right, but I'm still disappointed. Like, I obviously wanted us to win.
Does it feel like such a disappointment? Which, in some ways, disappointment is failure to meet expectations.
I mean, what happens though is I predicted the Vikings would win. I thought they would win. But then the game starts and I get that irrational confidence where I'm like, nah, we ball. Let's do it. We're going to win. But I did think the Vikings were going to take this game. I thought the Packers would come out rusty. They tend to. What was it? Under week ones, under LaFleur, they've scored 10, 7, and 3 points now in the last.
I saw
in 3 or 4.
They've had the one 40-point explosion in week one.
They had the 10-point
in 2020.
game. They had the 10-point game in his first game versus the Bears. They
had the 3-point game because
the Bears were
offense
awful.
was terrible.
And then the 3-point game versus the Saints last year, and then now 7 points versus the Vikings this year. The only break in that pattern was the first year against the Vikings in the COVID year 2020 when they
the empty stands
year. Yeah. But yeah, so week one seemed to be a bit of a bugaboo for the Matt LaFleur Packers is another kind of part of my gut check. But yeah,
there was
it's not great.
I was going to say about that. I can't remember now what I was thinking.
That's kind of the gut check. Those are our kind of in-the-moment reactions to how we felt about the game. Next, we're going to take you to a quick injury update. Not only did the Packers lose, they also lost 4 players in that time. They lost Chris Barnes, who had to be carted off the field in an air cast, unfortunately, to an ankle injury. Did not look good. All the players kind of had to check in on him as he left the field. It didn't
we'll
look
see
good.
how long or how
and
complicated that injury is.
Yeah, and the linebacker room took another hit because just before that, Quay Walker had to leave the field with a shoulder injury. Don't know how that's looking. Speaking of shoulder injuries on defense, Keyshawn Nixon also injured his shoulder on a really hard tackle and had to immediately come out of the game.
Saw that one.
Hanging
it was a nice tackle to stop him short of the first down.
Yeah, and that was when the Packers were really still in the game, and the defense was kind of up and down. We'll get to them later, but they got a couple stops when the Packers were still in the game and the offense didn't capitalize. But that was one of them that unfortunately Keyshawn Nixon injured his shoulder on. And then John Runyon had to be placed in the concussion protocol. We do not yet know at this time whether or not he actually sustained a concussion, but he was unable to return to the game.
Right,
so those are the injury updates from today's game. Unfortunately, not only did they lose, they also lost several key players.
Yeah, 2 starters, and the only substitute corner they had active for the game.
Yeah, so it's not,
which is kind of their inactives were a little bit odd in some ways too, having only one backup cornerback.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that real quick about what you thought about the inactives, since we're kind of in that injury inactive bucket right now?
So we already had heard, about Abernathy and Winfrey getting elevated.
Yeah, it's weird they elevated them, didn't play them at all.
Winfrey had a catch.
I thought it got negated by penalty. Did he have a catch?
I thought it was a offsides on the Vikings.
You are correct. Yes.
17 yards.
17 yards. Nice.
But I don't know if Abernathy, I figured that he was actually going to be...
He had maybe a snap on special teams, I think.
Maybe. I was thinking he was actually there to be their third real safety on defense, as opposed to a safety on special teams, which are, Levitt and Ford.
Yeah, and they went to 3 linebackers on defense before they went
that
to 3
was weird. I had
safeties,
to go back
which was
and watch
weird,
that
but
because
without
I was hearing
with
what
Quay,
was like. the number of times they had a linebacker trying to cover Justin Jefferson was driving me a little crazy.
I'm going to tell you, I'll take that over no one covering him, which was the rest of the plays where literally no one.
Could you tell?
Have you seen?
Could you tell the
stills?
difference?
Have you seen the stills where it's literally just it's green, it's all green grass. It looks like Fenway. Like there's no one out there.
We could talk about that in a minute, but
oh my goodness.
Or maybe we're almost at that point
anyway,
already.
Yeah. Since we're already getting to it, let's get down to our game breakdown. Because those are unfortunately the injuries and actives, and we'll move on to the game breakdown. Do you want to start with defense, Dad? Since we were kind of talking about Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. So
you want start? Go ahead and start with your one bad thing for the.
Should I do our good thing and bad things?
Yeah, okay, let's do our. We're gonna try. Oh, so what we're gonna do for these game breakdowns, good listeners, is we're gonna try and have one positive and one negative each for the offense and defense, and then occasionally special teams when required. Dad, do you want to start us off with your one bad thing for the defense, since it kind of ties into the secondary?
Jump to defense.
Yeah, since it kind of ties. into the
secondary. So my bad thing with the defense was the communication in zone in passing off receivers from one zone to the defender covering the other zone, and
even
Adrian
Amos
off to nobody.
Even Adrian Amos, who almost never makes mistakes, was making mistakes in zone. Like today, like it was so bad.
So that I think that's several of the plays where Jefferson is just running around uncovered. And I think the touchdown, his second touchdown, was one of those where he starts on the left, he's cutting through the zone. I forget which defensive back is following him, and then he like kind of stops as he goes to the other zone and gets ready to take the receiver coming the other direction, and nobody goes with Jefferson, and then he's just all alone.
Was that the one at the goal line?
That he dove for the pylon?
No, there's the one at the goal line when they were inside the 5. It looked like Douglas was yelling at Stokes, who.
When he goes in jet motion.
Yeah, they put Jefferson, but to tie into that, which is what you were talking about, they put Jefferson in motion. Douglas is yelling across to Stokes to say, "Hey, take that guy. He's coming. I'm not following." And Stokes didn't hear him, or didn't, like you were saying, the communication was bad
or something.
He didn't. I don't think he even heard him, and obviously Jefferson was wide open for a touchdown. So
I was talking about the other touchdown where on the long play, and he starts on the left and he breaks over to, I think he scored on that one, and he cuts across the field and ends up open on the deep right.
They were really doing a great job of putting Jefferson in positions where the defense didn't know what to do, and I think. Just to comment on the secondary, and my takeaway from the secondary really quick, is I thought Stokes had maybe his worst game as a Packer. I thought it was really bad. He was giving up catches to anyone they put him on. And, you hope it's not the start of a sophomore slump. I still have a lot of faith in him as a talented young player. But this is definitely one where you want this one back, because he was getting burned by Thielen, he was getting burned by Jefferson, he was not communicating what zone he was supposed to be in. It looked like, obviously we don't necessarily know what his assignments were, so we can only speculate, but based on speculation and just watching the game, it looked like a lot of the catches were in zones that he had either vacated or wasn't close enough and was hesitating to close on the ball. That's how it looked to me.
Also, you could bring up, since I think most of these were coverage assignments, and lack of communication is a lack of practice and preparation issue.
Yeah,
I would have liked to see them in man more, honestly.
Yeah, and I feel like that's my take as well, and it definitely feels like they have the personnel to play more man, but just play cover 2 man. What is it? The Chargers play a ton of it. Chargers play an absolute crap ton more than anyone else in the league cover 2 man. I think, but it's just they're playing a ton of zone. It's not working. And I'm not saying that it can't work going forward, and that if they tighten up some things, because they played zone pretty well last year, quite well actually. But I feel like in game, you're getting shredded. He's open all the time. Just put Jair on him. It's
definition of insanity.
Just make a change. I hate to say this, but make a change for change's sake, because He had
It's not even make a change.
What do you have? 100 yards at half?
It's make a change because it's failing.
Yeah, it's just like put Jair on him. Jair actually said after the game he had asked multiple times during the week to be put on Jefferson and trail him, which I know is very tough when they're motioning that much, but it had to be done more than it was, because it's one thing to be like, hey, it's hard to do this all the time. It's another thing for Jair to, like, I only remember him matched up on Jefferson maybe 3 times, 4 times, like a handful of times, and this guy's like killing you.
We didn't get the chance to see that matchup, and I think it was at least worth a try.
It just felt like
after they got burned multiple times. It
just felt like they were like, we're playing cover 2. We're not going to. Well, the idea of cover 2 is you don't get beat over the top, and then they repeatedly got beat over the top. So what are we even doing? You know, like, what's the point of playing zone like that when you're not even doing the goal of the zone? I don't know. It's frustrating, but that's kind of how we both felt about the coverage. I think we don't necessarily need to dwell on it too much. I think everyone on the back end needs to play better. It was one of the. At least there were a handful of plays that were the worst I've seen of Amos. I thought Savage was actually okay today, just from a general watch. I need to go in and do a little more deep of a watch. And I think that Douglas was okay. I mean, it was the whole zone communication was bad. I think it was just, and it seemed like the game plan was weird. I don't know, but it's hard to know without being in the building. But do you want to take us to your one good thing on defense? Kind of wash that down with a little shot, a little chaser, a little.
But we also have a difference of opinion here.
Yes. So what is your?
So
what,
I
what is
actually
your
felt
good thing?
like the run defense was improved compared to last year's, especially in the beginning of the game.
I'm gonna let you do your whole.
So you're gonna let me go, and then you are going to rebut the hell out of it.
Yes, because my bad thing is the run defense. So go ahead.
And
I'm about to shoot you down after this, but I'll let you have the floor for a little bit, I suppose.
But I did feel in the first watch anyway that they were getting a decent number of run stops, especially in the first half and early in the second half. And then the last 2 drives, that's when I felt like the Vikings were really starting to get their run game going and get some chunk runs.
Yeah, you mentioned something about stuff percentage.
So one thing I did look at, I said, okay, I had this impression. Was there any reality there, or was it just, I paid attention to a couple plays that stuck in my mind? So one thing I looked at was this stat called stuff percentage, which is a stat that Football Outsiders uses as one of their defensive metrics, and is generally considered to rate the performance of the defensive line against the run, not the defense at the second level, the third level against run defense. And so that's the percentage of runs that go for 0 or negative yardage. It's a stuff percentage. So against the Vikings, the Packers' stuff percentage by their defensive line was 28%. That would have led the league last year as a defensive front in stuff percentage on defense. And last year, the Packers on stuff percentage were second to last at 11%. The only team that was worse were the Vikings. So Packers were 31st last year. The Vikings were 32nd last year. And so that, I think there was some statistical support for my impression anyway, though it's not a huge sample size.
And
though the flip side of that, as actually last year, if we're harkening back to last year's stats, the Vikings offensive line was not very good at preventing getting stuffed.
So it's not controlling for opponent, is what you're saying.
You're right, because there's only been one.
Exactly. Well, I hear what you're saying about stuff percentage, although I will jump into my bad thing, good thing for lack of a better term for the Packers defense. My poor performer thing that I think needs improving is the defensive front. I thought it was not as advertised. I know Joe Barry and a lot of other Packers players had really talked about the front being a strength of this team. I thought Kenny played really well, but I just think as a whole cohesive unit, they really struggled. Like you said about stuff percentage, while that is well and good, they did still allow 28 carries for 126 yards, which is 4.5 a carry to Vikings running backs. And this was while this is especially bad when you think about how the Vikings were up the whole game, so they were always in a run-heavy script, so the Packers should have been ready for the run. And so while they might have had a good stuff percentage, they did still allow these higher carries, which makes me think that when the Vikings weren't getting stuffed, they were getting these 8-9 yard chunk run plays, which maybe is less so a problem for the actual defensive line and indicates more of a problem with the linebackers, so that when they get past the D-line, the linebackers are not playing well enough. And so maybe you could tie that into the fact that the linebackers were injured. They were missing Quay Walker and Chris Barnes for a majority of this game. But I do still think that it just wasn't good enough. They weren't getting enough pressure. They did do pretty well on 3rd and 4th downs, 5 of 13, which would have put them right about in the middle of the pack last year. But it felt like the pressures were kind of few and far between, especially when the backups were in. I just thought that they were not getting home enough. It's just the fact that the expectation for the defensive front was very high, while their actual performance was fairly mediocre.
I totally agree on the pressure part of the defensive front. That part of it I felt like was severely lacking. I feel like most of the time Cousins had all day. They sacked him once.
And it's the ideal situation for Cousins. I think Cousins is the type of quarterback.
2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I mean did they blitz once? I can't remember a time they blitzed.
Not that I can remember where linebacker. I don't remember a corner blitz, a safety blitz, or
ideally,
or even a linebacker blitz.
And the thing is, you know who he is. He's Kirk Cousins. Like, it's the inverse of the you know who I am on Kevin Durant. Like, it's Kirk. Like,
though
it's
he
Kirk
did
Cousins.
have a couple of completions when he was about to get hit.
He's fine. It's just like, if you pressure him, he will throw like a lollipop, and like you should be able to pick it. Like,
he did have one of those today that we didn't quite pick off.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. It was right in the middle of the field, huh? It was just floating up there. No one was close enough, but I don't know. I think they could have dialed up a couple more pressures. Ideally, you're rushing 4, dropping 7, and they did have a couple coverage pressures, but it just felt like, the Vikings O-line is definitely improved. It's better than it was last year, but especially with like the ascension of Darisaw. But there's still a lot of holes. Like, Garrett Bradbury is a below-average center in this league. I know he was a first-round pick, but he's not very good in pass protection. He's extremely mobile, but he's not strong enough for pass protection. Their right guard is a rookie. There's holes on that O-line that should have been exploited more than they were. And it just felt like, after a lot of talk this offseason about the Packers' defensive front, it just kind of fell flat to me. But yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it, both in the run game. I felt about it both in the run game and the pass, just because you look at the numbers and it wasn't dominant at all. It was very passive. It felt like they weren't really beating their man up front. They were just kind of trying to get in the way. I don't know. That's just how I felt. But my one good thing for the Packers defense was that when Quay Walker was playing, I thought he looked very solid. He had, according to PFF, 2 run stops on 14 run defensive plays, which is very good, very solid. He was exploding to the ball. Completions in his zone were not going for extra yards. He missed 1 tackle, but c'est la vie. It sucks that he had to leave with an injury, but I thought early returns on him looked quite good.
Yeah, he did have a little trouble losing receiver in coverage.
Well, that receiver was Justin Jefferson, so...
Yeah, where he just didn't follow him out to the flat.
It is what it is. He should not be put in that position.
No, that was also a problem. I think they didn't have...
Well, that's the problem with
zone.
And
then Preston was on Jefferson one time, too.
People were complaining about that, but it's like, he was in Preston's zone.
Yeah.
Which is like, Preston wasn't on him. Preston was in a zone, and Jefferson was in that zone. So kudos to the Vikings for getting that, like... getting him in space against a linebacker. But why is that the call? Like, it's not like they manned up. Let's not get crazy. People were complaining. No, people were complaining online. Like, why is Preston like in coverage, like directly with like Justin Jefferson? What are we doing? It's like, no, Preston is in zone, and they ran Jefferson into that zone. It's very different.
Right. So
but
what you
they
can
left
say
themselves,
is
they left themselves open to the possibility.
Why are we
of having
putting Preston in a position where they can do that to us?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
That's the question. That's the criticism.
You are leaving a vulnerability, and if you have an offensive player that's that good, they're gonna put him in the best spot for him to succeed, right, which would be a zone with a linebacker in it. So
smart coach is just gonna say, yeah, go to that spot.
Yeah, go run over there. We're gonna throw you the ball, and it's gonna be a free 8-10 yards. And it's like even once the safeties rally, he's already 9 yards downfield. Like, I don't know, but that's my positive. Do you want to hop over to some takes we had on the offense?
Okay.
You want to do good thing, bad thing?
I guess I'll do my good thing first. And I felt like,
sure.
Dylan looked pretty good in the game for the most part in terms of sometimes making something out of nothing and being able to power for some extra yards. Unfortunately, not at the goal line, but that was
so close.
Yeah, I rewatched that. I've already looked at that play like 3 times, and there's just nothing there. You know, there's no push from Hansen and Newman. Of course, you could question the wisdom of running it on the right side.
You could question why is the call so vanilla? They ran like
and then you had
very vanilla calls.
Za'Darius howling in from the left edge. You know, you could have easily taken advantage. You know he's going to do that and just run around behind him. And even Rodgers said, if you caught this quote, if I had kept it, I could have walked in.
Yep, he did say that, and he, yeah. And so yeah, that they're really. But for the most part, I think Dylan was doing a pretty good job of moving the pile, get space, nice catches actually. Where he was
getting
their
in
best
stride
player
and then turning upfield. I think a couple times, very nice.
Very arguably, it felt like the offense was. He was, as I was sending to a message group I'm in. A.J. Dillon is the Packers' spirit animal. When he is playing well, the Packers' offense is flowing. When he's getting them into that 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2, like short yardage situations, that's just when the offense is working the best. And also, he brings like some actual physicality to the team. Like, Can we please like play a little more physical? Like, give A.J. Dillon the rock. Right. Give this man the rock.
Yep.
But I thought he was. Is there anyone else in the conversation for best Packer today? Like, it's him and then a gap, right? No, just in general.
Oh, in general. Oh.
Like, who else is even in the conversation for best Packer? I feel like it's Dylan and then Gap and then Aaron Jones and then Big Gap and then everyone else, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess Jones didn't give enough chances to.
Yeah, that's... do you want to jump over to my good thing? Because my good thing was Aaron Jones.
Yeah, let's go to your good thing.
Because my good thing was Aaron Jones because, he looked really explosive. Like, he looked even more explosive than he did last year. He averaged 9.5 yards a touch, or 7.6 yards per use, which is carries plus targets. He had 5 carries for 49 yards and 3 catches on 5 targets for 27 yards. If you compare that to his numbers last year, he averaged 5.3 yards a touch compared to the 9.5 he did in this game, and 5 yards a use compared to the 7.6 in this game. So, efficiency-wise, that's elite. But, obviously, LaFleur said he would do this differently if he got another chance to. But why is he only getting 10 total uses? 8 touches, 10 uses. This is the only Pro Bowl skill position player you have, and they're just not using him. I don't really understand what happened there personally.
Yeah, it was the kind of the impression has been that he would get a lot of targets now, and he did not get as much as people, as I expected.
Yeah, and it's I thought he looked great. He looked like he was bursting through the hole. He was moving really well with the ball in his hands. He had a long rush of 29 yards, one of the only explosive plays on the day for the Packers. He had he had a long reception of 22 yards. He was churning out these explosive plays that the rest of the roster was really struggling to do. And it was just confusing as to why they kind of went away from him. Obviously, you want to give Dylan the ball too because he was your best player today. But, I don't have the numbers in front of me of how many times they ran pony package, which is 2 running backs on the field at once. It certainly didn't feel like enough. I saw him out there probably 7 or 8 times, but I feel like that should be the base. They didn't even use Amari in the backfield. They didn't use many 2-back sets.
No,
they used DeGuara.
That was interesting, actually. He was essentially their 3rd running back today, but he did not they did not use him in the backfield, and he didn't get much in the way of chances. He has like one. Oh, I guess he. No, I don't know what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to see a more LaFleurian offense, I guess is how I feel about it. I really liked the carries they gave to both Watson and Dobbs to give them a little confidence, because I know Watson...
Yes.
One thing we should talk about is Watson's drop, which I think is probably one of the more pivotal. We already talked about the 4th and goal stuff on Dylan, but I think the other most pivotal play in the game was first offensive play of the game. Christian Watson just
Torches.
Road runners.
He put Patrick
Patrick
in a
Peterson.
body bag.
Patrick Peterson looked like Wile E. Coyote running over the edge of a cliff and falling over. Like you don't quite realize until you look down that you're 10 yards behind
already
the guy.
off the cliff.
But
with an anvil
Watson,
following you.
Yeah, but Watson, he just dropped it, and drops were a big problem for him in college, and so until he puts together
in training camp.
And in training camp, any mini camp.
Sorry, not training camp, but the spring
OTAs. But until he puts together consistent production, and catches those deep balls, that's the question for him. That was the question for him in college. It was the question for him in OTAs. I know a lot of people are like, no, it's not really that big an issue. They're all concentration drops. Well, you don't get yards. You don't get yards for concentration drops. I'm sorry. That is still a drop. I don't know what to tell you.
If they got either one of those, then the game is tied, and you're kind of past that initial. Yeah.
And you hate to do the ifs, if this happened, if this happened. But I mean, if he catches that, I think it's a very different game. And they're forced to respect the over the top a little bit more the rest of the game. I mean, a lot of stuff changes. Who knows if they win, but it certainly would have been good for them to score a 75-yard touchdown on the first play to their rookie receiver. It would have been nice. I would have liked it. Yep. I don't know about you.
Would have been nice.
It would have been nice. Could have been nice. But that was the thing on Watson. But yeah, I did like though that they went back to him and gave him a carry just to be like, hey, you belong. Yeah, and
then he got
we still trust you. He had a couple catches.
Two catches.
Yeah, he had 2 catches.
One from Love.
Yeah, but he had 2 catches for 34 yards, long of 25 yards. But I like that they gave both him and Dobbs rushing. Dobbs actually had a pretty nice game. That's my other little positive, just a quick dial in on that for the game.
Yeah, I noticed he had a nice block on one play, too.
Yeah, he blocked well, 4 catches for 37 yards. Had a couple nice catches. He had a really nice catch in the red zone that Rodgers threw to him. I thought he looked very solid. I thought they could have targeted him maybe a little bit more. There were a couple times. There was early the first third down, I think, or second third down in the game. Rodgers threw out and he cut in. So you see that there's some growing pains there.
Yes, the same possession as the drop by Watson, I think.
Yeah, and so you see that there's some growing pains there, but I think they're just gonna have to go through them. But do you want to talk a little bit about your how you felt
offensive
with the
negative?
bad thing on the offensive negative, since we're kind of talking about some hiccups there?
Well, it's pass pro. Specifically on the
That's
right
what happens
side.
when you're missing 3 of your starting O-line, to be fair. To be fair, they were missing 3 of their starting O-line the whole game.
Not the whole game.
Most of the game. Runyon went out in the second quarter, I think.
Yeah, but it was already bad before Runyon went out.
That's
and it was mostly the Hansen getting just
Hansen got
practice
annihilated by Sadarius Smith on one play. That looked very familiar. It was a bit like a nightmare watching it jersey swap though. I did not enjoy it.
That was rough. The pass. Rodgers got sacked 4 times.
We'll get into my bad thing, but I don't
pressured 4 times.
I mean, he was getting
some of it was on him.
He was getting crushed back there. Yeah. No, we can talk about how it's on him because that's my bad thing is I thought he was holding the ball way too much. We'll talk about it in a second. But I think the pass pro was bad.
My bad thing on offense was the protection, especially on the right-hand side of the line. You didn't notice much of what was going on the left-hand side of the line, I think, quite so good. Often.
It was. I mean, the left side of the line is better than the right side of the line.
And then I guess the other thing I had on the bad thing for the offense was that their third/4th down conversion rate was not good.
What was it?
3 of 11 for the game and 0 for 2 on those fourths.
I mean, that's the biggest question without Devontae Adams, who, side note. Devontae
that
Adams
percentage,
Devontae Adams had more receiving yards than the entire Packers team, which is
I know. Well, the entire Packers
receiving core. Okay.
That's
not as bad then. That's not as bad. I'll
it's
take
not
that.
he had more yards than the entire Packers passing attack. Just the pack.
Yeah. But we don't want to dwell on that too much.
Room.
I'm not here to complain about that. It is what it is. And,
but I
just think it's an interesting stat. I don't know. It's just interesting to me.
But I just want to say that third down conversion rate would have been dead last year.
Sick. But that's the big question mark without having a go-to receiver is how do you convert third and fourth downs when you don't have a go-to guy? And
missing Lazard made this worse.
Yeah, and I mean, there was that, like we said, there's some communication issues where they weren't on the same page. But, I mean, if we want to take this into my kind of, like, bad
yeah, we could go to yours now.
Yeah, I just thought, I mean, I know he was under pressure, but I thought Rodgers played a really bad game overall. I thought he held the ball way too long. He was really burping the baby back there, as they say.
I had like 3 or 4 plays where I'm like, just throw it out of bounds.
Throw it into the seats. Throw it into like a fan would love that ball. A fan would cherish that ball forever. That's a great little keepsake for them. Just make their day. Throw the ball into the stands. There were several times where it was like the check down is there. Throw the check down, and he waited. And I know it's partially that the receivers aren't so in tune with what the scramble drill is supposed to look like yet. So obviously, hopefully, that comes in time. But there were so many times where I was like, hit the check down, please. There was the one sack where I can't remember someone annihilated him and just slammed him into the ground. But Dylan picked up the Dylan picked up the blitz from Za'Darius. For some reason, Za'Darius was not blocked. Big brain, very very big brain of us. Dylan gets flattened, gets back up, and kind of leaks out. And Rodgers looks at him, but Dylan's kind of stumbling. I don't know why Rodgers didn't just yuck it at his feet. Maybe the sightline wasn't as clear as it looked like on broadcast. But I thought he was just going to throw it right at Dylan's feet and be like, okay, we're good. But he just kind of pumped it, froze, and just got body slammed into the ground. And it was there was like
Phillips. Who was it?
There was like two or three where it was like it looked like he could just thrown it away, and he just got a like mouthful of like just getting punched in the face by like 3 linemen. He was getting killed back there, but I don't think it was all on the line. I really do think he really just held the ball too long a lot of the time, and it felt like really tangible by about the third quarter that I was like, oh my goodness, throw the ball, my guy. Because this has been the problem with Rodgers in the past, before LaFleur got here, is he would just hold and take the sack. You hope like some of that, because he struggled with that in the first week versus the Saints last year, and you hope some of that's just a little rusty, not quite as sharp as he'd like. He's a very particular quarterback in terms of what he likes. That's how it is. And don't blame him for that at all, but I do think that probably contributes to why he was taking so many sacks. But I think that was a big negative in the game, and a big reason why they lost the game is because instead of third and 6, it's 3rd and 14. Like,
yeah, where he's like hoping for the play and he doesn't want to bail on it. And I think part of it is he's like expecting or hoping the receiver will cut one way, and they do not. And then he looks another way, and he doesn't. And it's got to have that clock ticking in your head. That's time to throw this thing away.
There was one specifically, and I can't remember what play it was, but I was like, I don't know how his clock's not going off right now, because he's been holding it for 8 seconds, and I'm watching the right tackle like Royce Newman fight for his life out there, and his Danielle Hunter is beating the crap out of him. I'm like, help him, Royce Newman out. Is that the
one where it looked like Newman tried to hold Hunter but was unsuccessful at holding him and gave up the sack anyway?
Probably yes, but it just felt like yes, the line struggled, but I felt like Rodgers was not setting them up for success, if that makes sense. That's just kind of how I felt about it. But yeah, that was my bad thing for the Packers offense. I think though that just to touch back on the good things, it did seem like the running backs were doing the best, that were clearly the best, because as Andy Herman tweeted, Jones and Dillon had 25 touches or targets for 155 yards and a touchdown, and the rest of the team had 31 opportunities for 118 yards. And so I think the Packers probably should steer into that and just use Jones and Dillon more until the rest of the team is caught up. It also does kind of line up with just that holistic feeling of that the offense. It did feel like I think the offense was working a lot better when they were running the ball as like the primary offense. Like every time, I know this is like stupid because obviously you can't do the same thing every time, but to me, just as like I felt like every time they passed on first down, I was like, I know you got to switch it up, but it's just second and 10 now. All it is 2nd and 10. I mean, I was fine with like the swing passes, obviously, because actually those were working quite well. Those swing passes,
working pretty well. Those the
Dylan
ones that
especially was doing excellent work,
reaching out, and plucking the ball, and then turning upfield nicely.
So that was
at least 2.
It just gave the offense a better rhythm when they were getting those touches to Dillon and Jones early, which clearly lines up with the stats, lines up with how we felt about the game, lines up with how I saw a lot of people talking about the game online, being like, "Hey, they gave the ball to Dillon. The offense is working." Shout out Newmock.
I mean, you do have the counterpoint to you don't want to be predictable, but the other counterpoint is like, I'm just going to keep doing this till you show you can stop it.
And I mean, the Vikings' run defense is not that good. Their pass defense is better than the run defense, or their pass rush is better than the run defense, at least. I don't know. I just feel like they kind of outthought themselves, but that's kind of how we felt about the game. Do you want to kind of circle into our closing thoughts and kind of wrap this up, put a bow on it, and move past this god-awful
put a bow on this,
effing
put it away,
game.
And
never look at it again never look at it again. It'll be like the Saints game again, where I'm just like, delete that.
I've looked at some terrible
Have
games
you rewatched the Saints 38-3 game?
Yeah.
Why?
Have you watched?
I guess to see some Jordan Love, but
that was part of it. Actually, I wanted to see
that game was
the bit that
awful.
Love had at the end.
That game was terrible. Jameis Winston looked like, I don't even know, like what even is the comparison? He threw like 7 passes and 4 of them were touchdowns. Like I've never seen anything like it before.
Oh right, they hardly had to pass, and they were like almost all touchdowns.
Kicking our ass, but
wasn't he also running all over us?
You could tell me yes, and I'd believe you. I think they were doing whatever they wanted.
I feel like that we had a lot of trouble actually with running quarterbacks that year.
I mean, Jameis doesn't really run, so I doubt it was him running all over us. I think no, he was just yucking it on us, and we were just like, okay, throw it past us. Marquez Callaway, come kill us, I guess. I don't even remember if he had the big game, but we were getting smoked. But anyway, let's kind of wrap it up, get down to our closing thoughts. Dad, you got any kind of things do you want to tie up this game? Put a bow on it?
What do I have for closing thoughts on this game?
What do you think they need to work on in practice this week? I guess that's where I'm going with it.
So I think they need to work on their communication in the secondary.
Yep.
And I don't know if they were giving enough like tight end help to the right side of the line.
Yeah.
And I think that's something they could do to help out that side. I was looking, and I haven't gone through it the whole game with that eye yet, but I felt like there were a couple times like there's nobody helping over there, and they're just getting crushed. On that side. So
I would have liked to see more tight end usage.
A little more like getting a Mercedes on the right hand side.
One thing that I forgot to say, I thought Tunyon looked really good. I know it looked like he was. It looked like he was on a snap count, which is fine. I mean, he's coming back from a very serious injury. He looked good. He looked
didn't get
really
that many
good.
Opportunities, but he looked good on the ones he got.
Yeah, he had that 30-yard reception where he was. The wind, the hair was flowing in the breeze. The wind was flying. He was moving. It was great. But I guess my closing thoughts on it is, what do I even to say? I think it's nice to get a little bit of a wake up call. I think the defense was kind of drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit on themselves. They were kind of their shit don't stink. You know, they were really feeling themselves because they were beating up on our offense. But now it's like, okay, You kind
This
of
is
got
always
punched.
The question is it the defense that's really good, or is our
Or
offense
is our
just
offense
bad?
that bad? Yeah, no.
But
Hopefully,
they also beat up on the Saints' offense actually during
yeah,
those.
who cares? It's.
Jameis
The
Winston.
Saints almost lost to the Falcons. So if we're
should
putting
have.
ourselves
They got
there,
lucky.
but anyway, I think the defense. It's nice for them to get a little bit of a wake up call. I think they were kind of feeling themselves a little bit, and it's
let's hope
good
that,
to refocus and but I
Quay
think
Walker
and
is
and
not
Barnes
out for a long
and
time.
yeah,
Right, we lost two linebackers.
Two linebackers.
We were talking about how
which
deep
is
our
not great.
inside linebackers were. We
Yeah,
lost two of them.
And McDuffie took his first NFL defensive snap, which is kind of cool for him. That's exciting. But then on offense, I think I think hopefully this is just another week one game where it's like, hey, you didn't play in the preseason. You're going to be rusty. You're not going to be that sharp. It is what it is. But I think I would like to see next game more commitment to using the backs more. I would like to see Amari in the backfield a little bit, just as a bit of a change of pace. I feel like we didn't see that at all. And special teams, keep doing what you're doing. That's fine. Whatever you did today, didn't notice you, amazing. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I was looking. I think the Gunners were actually doing their job, forcing fair catches.
Amazing. Who would have thought
It was
that's
both
allowed?
Ford and maybe it was Nixon.
Ford didn't play. I don't think.
Who was the gunner there?
I don't believe Ford played. I know they played Stokes a little at gunner after Keyshawn Nixon got hurt. Keyshawn Nixon was a gunner for a little bit, but I don't think Ford ended up playing.
Okay, I'm quick looking up the.
Well, I'll stall for you for a little bit. Special teams.
But I haven't looked at snaps or anything like that.
Special teams do that every time.
No, Jonathan Ford was inactive.
Oh, okay, yes, you are right. You are right.
But Cody Ford is not listed among the inactives. I should
Not
say.
Cody Ford.
I went to Packers. Why?
Not Cody Ford. Rudy Ford.
Rudy Ford.
Cody Ford is a lineman.
Letter, consonant, vowel, dy. Ford.
Yeah.
But so I went to Packers Wire to find the quick see the inactives. But yeah, so I thought that I saw him on one of the gunner spots. But they forced several fair catches kicked it out of bounds. Our coverage was good.
The punching was good. So just the punching, kicking coverage, everything, that was fine. And Amari, good job fielding punts. That was good. You didn't look that explosive on the returns, but you caught everything, that's all we are asking for.
He didn't really have much chance on those returns.
That's fine. I don't care. Just catch the ball. That's the bar. That's the bar right now. Is learn to crawl before we walk. That's all we need to do. But I think that's kind of all we had for our breakdown of the game. But yeah, this has been our post game for the Packers-Vikings Week 1 game. Didn't exactly go as we hoped, but hopefully they bounce back in Week 2 versus when they take on the Bears. And we will be previewing that game on Thursday night. You can check out our podcast; they'll be releasing that evening, and then we will also be doing a post game on it after Sunday Night Football on Sunday night. So please come check out our podcast this week. We would love you to check out our episodes.
And we'll see what next week brings. We might have the same offensive line next week based on a tweet from Ryan Wood.
What did he say?
Well, that was about Bakhtiari.
Oh, that Bakhtiari is not going to, probably not going to play
this week
week 2.
And may also miss next week.
Yeah,
part of my optimism this week was thinking back on Thursday that they were going to play.
I'm not going to believe it until they're out there for real. But anyway, thank you again so much, everyone, for coming and listening and just listening to us talk shop. Hopefully we'll be talking after a win next Sunday. But thanks again so much. This has been the Father Son Packers podcast. Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.